Te whare hui wānanga, e tūnei, tēnā koe. Te ati awa, nā tangata whenua o te takiwa, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko mātātua me Captain Cook, nā waka, ko Ngāti Awa me Ngāti Rānana nā iwi, that's Ngāti Rāna, the tribe of London. Ko Patuai te hapu, ko Anthony Hōete, tuko ingoa. So my research is called 6Ws. It looks at the housing affordability crisis, and it's research which has come out of practice. I'll say again in this talk, I'm not an academic, I'm an architect. And the research follows what I envisage as a circular economy, a 6-point supply chain, which I've called 6Ws. And this goes from the whenua, to the forest, to wheketere or factories, to whaihanga or fabrication, to whare, and finally to whanau. And the purpose is to look at the housing unaffordability crisis and to intervene in that, and not just build housing, but build an economy. And the outcomes here are not just for Māori. Māori just stand at the bottom of the property ladder. So if we build better housing for Māori, we build better housing for all New Zealand. Kia ora. Today, Māori own 66% of the land. We used to own all of it. But then Te Tiriti came along, and then that's when it all went wrong. Today, 17% of the country owns 6%, and that is an inequity, and that 6% is red, tends to be in the most inaccessible parts of the country. So the Māori land is different from European title. It's not a commodity, and its cultural values make it distinct, and also problematise things like borrowing. And so the research looks at for fiscal pathways to not only to develop, but to design and to build better housing. So the research is not only about the whenua, it's located in the whenua. It's what we call, what I found in the academic space is called transdisciplinary research. Basically, it happens outside the laboratory, outside the library, down from the ivory tower, across the green fields, onto the brown fields, and lands on a marae. And there's not many early career researchers on marae. Most of them, but that's the rangatahi that we use. And here's an example for us working with EQC Tokatuake on seismic resilience on Opiki marae. Here we can see some carvings from a house called Tāne Whiranaki, which was once described by James Cowan as the best example of a carved meeting house in the country. Unfortunately, the house no longer stands since the 1931 earthquake. So we temporarily took those carvings out of the shed, suspended them so that we could LiDAR them. So this is now culture and technology coming together. But at the same time, it provided an opportunity for a generation which had seen their land lost through raupatu or land confiscation through the East Coast land wars to sit within the ancestral house and have what we call a wānanga. Like that's the sort of forum. Ironically, the research won an NZA award, which is unusual because this was a pop-up whare. And so when the jury came to see it, didn't actually exist. But even more perversely, the Herald had the headline that in the papers that high-end holiday homes feature. But this also tells you to where New Zealand architecture currently lands, and it lands in the house. It lands in bloated batches and conflated en-suites from en-suites and triple car garaging and 5 island kitchens, but not generally around research on whenua. W2 relates to wao or ngāhere, and that's the forest. 40% of our forest, our surface cover is forest. And Māori identification with forestry, of course, can be traced to our creation myth of Tane Mahuta, god of the forests. And so the research asks, what's the potential of our indigenous forests if they can be sustainably harvested. So 76% of our forest is still native. So we're working with Scion on looking and investigating that. The research also partners with the UCL. We're working on the urban indigenous forests. That's important because urban forests offer climatic benefits for the cooling of cities. London, where I lived for 25 years, has 21% canopy cover compared to parts of Auckland, which is 2. It relates to, W3 relates to wheketere or factory. We currently export 60% of our logs. We're the world's largest log exporter, coals to Newcastle. And so we're working with government agencies on the onshore wood processing growth. Basically, stop shipping forests and start to process here. No Kauro aho. I grew up in Kauro. My father, who's turning 80 next week, kia ora, happy birthday, spent 25 years working in the mill. The pulp and paper part of Tasman has left, but the sawmill could be repurposed. So with these treaty settlements, Māori are continuously now coming to own half the forests and being could repurpose and put those mills back to better use. The work I was doing in London looked at new materials. The previous project was a school with rubber roof. This one was a school built out of Lego bricks because we wanted to get the children involved in the design, which I found out in the academic space is called co-design. Okay. And so we gave these, the school was near Legoland, so I organised a deal to get some bricks, 1.3 million. We put it inside the curriculum. We taught modern architecture, Lego Corbusier, after the French, after Le Corbusier. The bricks were white because and we taught modern architecture. And we thought, why are we just designing with bricks, this school? Why not build the school with bricks? And so we built the school here. And this interest in new materials also led me into processed timber. And here we can see what this is called cross-laminated timber. This is the current drivers, which brought me back to Aotearoa. I'd been building housing in London using off-site manufacturing. My partner is a Spanish company in the Basque area with the oldest indigenous cultures, so it's a great connect. And here we are shipping in one of these 5 articulated trucks. This is a Spanish, French convoy exceptional, shipping in a block of flats. Building a mass timber, so what is mass timber? Plywood's 20, CLT's 200. No, we don't use gibboard. Obviously for Māori, gibboard's kind of a white surface, plastered to death. So what we've got here is basically, it's quite live this talk. We've basically got no skirtings, no window frames, and so we can reduce the cost of the housing through the finishing. It's underfloor heated, and this is affordable housing we were doing in the United Kingdom, which I'm hoping to bring back into the whakaianga space.
Plans to resurrect an ancient wharenui destroyed in the 1931 Napier earthquake have had a boost. A prototype for the reconstruction of the meeting house of whare successfully passed seismic testing at the weekend. Sam Calloway has more.
It's taken years to get to this, a seismic stress test for a centuries-old traditional building technique. Tāne whirinaki.
So that's the research now looking for seismic resilience. I said that we partner. It's also about the architect claiming the space of engineering. In the Māori perspective, there were no divisions between architecture, engineering, construction. That everything was manifest through the process of making things. And of course, this is taking us into the whakaianga space, build-to-rent housing in London, which is being transferred to whakaianga. This is what I call an ahi kāinga. It's up in Rāwhiti. It's basically, or brotel would be another way. It's so the hapu which live mainly in Tāmaki can go back and occupy their whenua on a timeshare basis. And we also work in places like Te Tiko, the capital of the Māori world, the highest concentration of marae in on the whenua, building flood resilient, so these ones are elevated and they're seismic resilient housing. Kia ora. Oh, sorry. Ngā mihi to the Associate Deputy Pro-Vice Chancellor Simon Hōete, Pro-Vice Chancellor Māori Te Kauio Hoskins, Pro-Vice Chancellor Deputy Research Partnerships at RMIT, Martin Hook, and Associate Professor Dean Sully at the UCL for nominations and seconding, referring. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. I think in the academic world we call that an excellent talk. We have time for questions.
Kia ora.
Hang on, you got a microphone, because yeah. Please.
So one issue for building a sustainable forestry industry in New Zealand that's coming on the horizon is the huge upsurge in unpruned trees and carbon sink forests that are not going to be pruned, and therefore low value wood products probably can't even be shipped overseas as logs really there. So how are we going to build a sustainable high value forest industry if we haven't got pruned trees?
So our entry point into this circular chain is to do a sweep of the Māori owned forestries first and find out their maturation. So we basically have to choose the partner through where the mature stands are and getting accessibility. So we're kind of working which partners can get us onto their particular forests first, rather than say the condition of the tree.
Yeah, I mean, no, sorry, that wasn't really the question. I mean, the question was that to get the high value trees, you have to put the money into pruning them.
Sure.
And over the last 20 years or 15 years, I understand more and more forestries of all types around the country have chosen not to prune their trees, and therefore we've now got a huge surge coming up of unpruned trees, which are only really good for chip and pulp and things like that. How can we move back to the situation of creating that high value product by making sure we have those good quality logs to work with?
Yeah, probably can't answer that question, so I'm going to answer your question. Basically, we ended up working with those communities first in need. So we ended up working in a Pōtiki. They have access to their forests and they have people working in their forestry. So we basically have accessed through their existing capacities, and that's what we've sort of gone through. So the restanding of their whare will use trees from their forests with their workforce. So we'll probably encounter that exact problem as we build scale. But at the moment we basically go to those hapus and communities which come to us with opportunities.
Yes, so our exotic forests are pretty monocultural. Is there any effort on the part of iwi and hapu to rebalance forests towards our native potocarps, which are wonderful wood, but they do grow rather more slowly?
It's probably both those questions are probably loaded to in that chain of that cycle. We've decided to enter at the point of post forest. Yeah, so we basically decided to accept them as they are. So therefore we can get into the fabrication. So the entry point that will be around harvesting and fabrication of it. So the forest will be because the cycle is still
cycling. Are you going to cycle back to more exotics, or to change the cycle?
Well, there are. I mean, Science doing work around tōtara, for example, for accelerated growth, and also the European partner has shown an interest in cloning, in exotic cloning, which you can't do under European legislation. So again, we're sort of looking for where the gaps are. It's under the horizon one. We have to work out what can we do. The Europeans know timber technology, particularly the Germans and Austrians, far better than we do. But on the other hand, we offer a climatic and indigenous, say, seismic setting, and also a type of species. And so kind of working out where the knowledge gaps are for the two partners, and then how we can join. Kia ora.
Last question.
Tēnā koe, Anthony.
Kia ora.
It's on.
It is on, thanks. So, just a question about the relationship, the percentage of Māori land that you gave to us at the beginning, and where the forests in the chain that you're accessing. Are most of those off Māori land or on Māori land?
Yeah, so I've been back in the country 3 years, and I've basically decided to work in the rohe, which I'm from, Ngāti Awa, although Portuguese to whakatohia next door, and we work with what they can access, and that's where we have to start. Like, they have a need, and we go to the forestry they have. They've already got capacity within the working within forestry at the moment. So I guess I'm trying to say that we're not. I know there's a lot of conversation about the forest, but we're probably trying to intervene at the point.
I probably didn't make my question clear. I'm just curious, really, from the fact. So I'm a sort of a lawyer person, so that's just to explain some of the back. I'm just curious about how much of the forest is actually on the Māori land that you indicated, as opposed to Māori-owned land.
Oh, no, yeah. So there's
so the distinction between being owned or the category of Māori land that you gave us at the beginning.
So the first data set would look at the overlap between Māori land, Māori-owned, where the leases are, Māori leases, and the maturation, right? And that set would then, and then the relationship to the neighbouring hapu. So that's the kind of data set we're sort of looking for.
Okay.